So here is a question worth sitting with for a moment. When did the European Union stop being a club that member states joined and start being a court that drags them in by the collar? Today Brussels did exactly that. It took two of its own members, Poland and Ireland, and hauled them in front of the European Court of Justice. And the reason is not war, not corruption, not some grand betrayal. It is climate paperwork. I am Andrew Meet Rich, and over the next few minutes I want to walk you through what is actually happening across Europe right now, because the picture is sharper than the headlines let on. We will get to Germany, which just slammed the door on Brussels over its own borders. We will get to a quiet move that could change life for 1 million Ukrainian men living in Europe. And we will get to a Romanian healthcare system that is one step away from the largest strike in its history. But let us start where the power really sits. The European Commission has filed suit against Poland in the European Court of Justice. The charge is that Warsaw failed to implement a climate directive aimed at the aviation sector. In plain language, Brussels wants airlines to carry far more of the cost of their own emissions, and it says Poland did not move fast enough to make that happen. So now Poland will defend itself in court against the very institution it helped build. And Ireland is in the dock right beside it. The Commission has gone after Dublin too, this time over peat. Over the harvesting of peat bogs and whether Ireland followed European environmental rules in the process. Think about that for a second. A country is being sued by Brussels over how it digs up its own soil. The peat bogs of Ireland, some of the oldest landscapes in Europe, are now a legal battleground between a national government and a continental bureaucracy. Now you can argue the environment matters, of course it does. But notice the pattern. The Commission is not asking. It is not negotiating. It is suing. And it did not stop with Poland and Ireland. The same day, Brussels turned to Italy and told Rome it must reform its tax system and fix what it called territorial imbalances. The message from the top was blunt. There will be no special treatment for anyone, and the Commission will push member states to accelerate reforms whether they like it or not. So who decides what is too slow? Who decides which national choices are reforms and which are violations? That is the real story here. Sovereignty in Europe is quietly migrating from capitals to courtrooms. And the citizens of Poland, of Ireland, of Italy never voted for that transfer. It just happened, directive by directive, lawsuit by lawsuit. Which brings me to the country that decided this week to push back, Germany. The German Interior Minister flatly rejected a call from the European Commission to scrap internal border checks. Brussels has been arguing that after all the migration reforms, after tighter external borders and new screening procedures, the internal checks are no longer needed, and that the Schengen zone should run without barriers between members. Germany said no, not maybe. No. The minister was clear about why. He said the border checks have proven effective against illegal migration, and they will stay. He said the protection of Europe's external borders must be significantly strengthened, and that the countries where migrants first arrive must take them back. Right now, these internal checks are running in 10 European Union countries, including Germany, Austria, France, and Italy. So this is not one stubborn government. This is a third of the bloc keeping its borders up while Brussels insists they come down. And here is where it gets personal for a lot of people. The same German minister backed a much bigger idea. The idea of ending the automatic protection that Ukrainian men of fighting age currently receive in Europe. The protective directive could be extended, he suggested, but maybe not for men between 23 and 60. For them, he said, the standard asylum process should apply, with each case judged individually. Let that land. Right now there are around 1 million Ukrainians in Germany who arrived after February of 2022. And officials say the number of military-age men arriving has climbed noticeably. Most European Union countries, according to reporting, are leaning toward removing these men from automatic protection. Austria's Interior Ministry expects the bloc to stop accepting Ukrainian men aged 23 to 60 under new rules after March of 2027. Men who already hold protection would keep it. But the door for the next ones is closing. This is the kind of decision that does not make a loud noise on the day it happens. There is no dramatic vote, no banner headline, just a shift in procedure. And then, months later, a man at a border desk is told the rule has changed. That is how the biggest changes usually arrive. Quietly. Meanwhile, the mood inside Germany itself is turning cold. A new poll landed this week, and it is brutal for the government. 72% of Germans now say the governing coalition is doing a poor job rather than a good one. Only 27% are satisfied with the Chancellor. 69% gave him a negative rating. That is not a dip. That is a verdict. And from across the Atlantic came an unexpected jab. A diplomat in the American administration sharply criticized Berlin for prosecuting a man who had called the Chancellor a liar. The criticism was pointed. The claim was that German law is sliding towards censorship and that it threatens free speech online. Now you can hold whatever view you like about American politics, but the underlying tension is real. A country that talks constantly about defending democracy is putting citizens through the courts for insulting a politician. Those two things sit uneasily together, and plenty of Germans feel it. Let me take you east for a moment, to a story that has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with people. Romania. The country's emergency medical workers are threatening what unions are calling the largest strike in the nation's history. Healthcare staff had already protested against a law that would sharply cut their real wages. They were not heard, so now the ambulance workers are preparing to join them. Think about what that means in practice. If the people who answer the emergency call walk out, the consequences are not abstract. They are measured in minutes, in the time it takes for help to arrive. When a government ignores the protests of its doctors, it should not be surprised when the ambulances stop too. That is not radicalism. That is exhaustion. And there is a smaller story that I think says something larger about Europe.